Have you ever had that strange electric feeling that someone, somewhere was thinking about you, and then your phone lit up with their name? Emotional attunement is the ability to sense and understand the emotions, moods, and subtle signals of another person without them having to say a single word. It's not just about noticing what someone is doing, it's about feeling the undercurrent behind their actions. When you're emotionally attuned, you're tuned into the invisible frequency of someone else's presence, which allows you to pick up on the small, almost imperceptible shifts that can tell you they're thinking about you. This skill doesn't happen by accident. It's a conscious practice of awareness combined with a calm, centered mindset. The more present you are with yourself, the more sensitive you become to others' emotional patterns. It's like being in a quiet room where even the faintest sound becomes noticeable. If you're mentally scattered, constantly overthinking, or caught up in your own emotional storms, you won't be able to detect these subtle cues. But when your mind is still, you naturally become more aware of the energetic touch someone leaves when you're on their mind. Think of a moment when you were about to call or text someone, and then they reached out to you first. That's not just coincidence. Often it's the result of emotional resonance. Our brains and bodies are constantly sending out signals through tone, pacing, pauses, and even word choice. When you've built an emotional connection with someone, you start recognizing patterns in these signals. You notice that they reply to your messages in a certain way when they've been thinking of you, or that their face lights up in a slightly different way when they've been carrying you in their mind. Emotional attunement is what allows you to catch these moments, and it's not about interrogating them or needing confirmation. It's about feeling it in your own body that something in their energy has shifted towards you. To develop this, you must practice being a conscious observer. This means listening not just to the words they say, but to the tone they use, the pace of their breathing, the way their eyes linger, or the slight smile that plays on their lips before they speak. People often communicate more in what they don't say than in what they do. Emotional attunement gives you access to that unspoken world. Sometimes you'll notice an extra softness in their tone, or maybe they reference something you told them weeks ago, showing that they've been replaying your words in their mind. These are small but telling signals that they've been thinking about you. It's important to remember that this isn't about reading minds or assuming things without evidence. It's about combining awareness with an understanding of that person's unique patterns. Over time, you'll start to feel a distinct difference between when their energy is neutral and when it's charged with thought and emotion toward you. This difference can be so subtle that it's almost impossible to explain to someone else, yet it feels completely clear to you. The beauty of emotional attunement is that it becomes stronger the more you focus on understanding rather than controlling. You're not trying to force signs to appear, you're simply open to noticing them when they do. When you become emotionally attuned, you no longer have to rely solely on big, obvious gestures to feel connected to someone. You start to sense it in the way they lean closer during a conversation, how their voice lowers when they talk to you, or the way their eyes track you even in a crowded room. These are not random actions, they're the physical expressions of mental and emotional focus. You can feel it when they're thinking of you because their attention has a weight to it, and you've trained yourself to recognize that weight. The more you practice this awareness, the more you realize that connection is not just about what's said out loud, it's about the silent, almost invisible threads that tie two people's minds together. People rarely start by expressing their interest directly. Instead, they tend to communicate it in subtle, indirect ways long before any clear admission is made. These cues can be incredibly telling if you know what to look for, and they often reveal more truth than the words someone might choose to share. When a person is thinking about you, their behavior shifts in small ways that reflect the attention you occupy in their mind. It might be the way they initiate conversation about trivial things, just to have a reason to talk to you. It could be that they suddenly recall a detail you mentioned in passing weeks ago, weaving it into conversation as if it's been stored and revisited in their thoughts. These moments are not accidental, they are markers of mental presence. The indirect nature of these signals stems from a mix of self-protection and uncertainty. People often fear rejection, so they avoid making their interest obvious too quickly. Instead, they drop hints through their actions, which serve as a safer way to gauge your response. You might notice they check in at unusual times, not because they have urgent news, but because they want a moment of connection. Their texts might arrive more frequently in the evening when they're winding down and their mind is free to wander to you. In conversation, they might reference shared jokes or experiences repeatedly, as though keeping that bond alive and fresh in your memory. These are not merely friendly gestures, they are breadcrumbs leading back to the fact that you've been on their mind. Another indirect sign is the shift in their body language. A person who is thinking about you might unconsciously orient themselves toward you in a group setting, mirroring your posture or gestures without realizing it. They might lean in slightly closer than necessary, or their gaze might linger an extra moment before looking away. These are instinctive behaviors, not calculated ones, and that's why they're so revealing. The body often speaks before the mouth does, and it's in these unguarded moments that true interest can be detected. Tone of voice is another key indicator. Even without any romantic declaration, you might notice a warmth or softness in the way they speak to you compared to others. Their laughter might come more easily in your presence, or they might slow their speech when addressing you, unconsciously savoring the interaction. These changes are rarely deliberate. They're byproducts of the emotional state they experience when they think of you and finally get to engage with you directly. By paying attention to these indirect signals, you start to see that human communication is layered. The surface level is the conversation itself, but underneath is a constant stream of subtle cues, revealing far more than the words allow. Interest often lives in that space between action and confession, where small behaviors quietly announce feelings that haven't yet been spoken. When you give someone space instead of constantly seeking their attention, you create an environment where their interest in you has room to grow and become more noticeable. This is where detachment plays a powerful role. It doesn't mean you're cold or indifferent. It means you're not anxiously watching for every sign or forcing interactions to happen. When you're overly focused on someone, your attention can feel heavy and it can unintentionally push them into a defensive or withdrawn state. But when you pull back and focus on your own life, you remove that pressure, which allows them the freedom to initiate contact and express their feelings in a more natural way. This freedom often makes the signals they send out much clearer and easier to recognize. Detachment changes the dynamic because it shifts you from a position of chasing to one of observing. When you're not trying to constantly control how often you hear from them or how quickly they respond, you become more sensitive to genuine expressions of interest. For example, when you give space, a sudden message from them feels more deliberate because it wasn't prompted by anything you did at that moment. If they bring up a memory you shared or ask how your day is going, you know it came from their own initiative, not from a conversation you started. This makes those moments more meaningful and shows you when they are truly thinking about you. Another benefit of detachment is that it breaks the cycle of over-analyzing. When you're overly invested in immediate responses or constant reassurance, you can mistake random actions for signs of deep thought about you. By stepping back, you create emotional clarity. Without the fog of expectation, you can see the difference between casual communication and the kind that carries emotional weight. This clarity allows you to interpret their actions more accurately, rather than reading too much into every small gesture. Detachment also affects how they perceive you. When you are living your life fully, pursuing your own goals, and showing that you're comfortable without constant attention, it naturally increases your value in their eyes. People are often drawn to those who are self-sufficient and confident because it signals emotional stability. This in turn can make them more likely to reach out, check in, or make an effort to be present in your life. The more they do this on their own terms, the easier it is to feel when they've been thinking about you. Ultimately, detachment gives both you and the other person room to breathe. It's in this space that genuine attraction and interest can grow without being forced. You can sense their thoughts more clearly because you're no longer drowning in your own need for constant validation. Instead, you're calmly noticing when they choose to close the distance, and those moments stand out sharply against the background of your independent, fulfilled life. Your intuition becomes sharper when your mind is quiet and you're not caught up in a cycle of overthinking. Stillness is not about doing nothing. It's about creating mental space so you can sense subtle shifts in the way someone interacts with you. When your thoughts are constantly racing, you miss these shifts because you're focused on your own internal noise rather than on what's happening in the present moment. But when you allow yourself to slow down, to breathe, and to truly be aware, you can feel changes in tone, rhythm, and energy that signal when someone's attention is drawn toward you. This stillness acts like a filter. Without it, you might overinterpret random actions or project your hopes onto their behavior. With it, you start to notice patterns. You recognize the difference between a casual, surface-level interaction and a moment that feels charged with thought and meaning. For example, you might pick up on the way they check in with you unexpectedly or reference something personal you shared before. You might feel a slight emotional pull from them even before they speak because you're attuned enough to sense the undercurrent of connection. When you're still and present, your awareness naturally extends beyond words to the spaces between them. You notice the pauses in conversation and how those pauses feel. Sometimes they're comfortable, sometimes they're loaded with unspoken feelings, and sometimes they're a bridge between what they want to say and what they actually express. In those moments, your intuition can tell you more than direct statements ever could. Stillness allows you to hear not only what is said, but also what is implied or left unsaid. Quieting your mind also prevents you from forcing outcomes. Instead of trying to hunt for signs or push someone to reveal their thoughts, you're creating an open field where their actions can emerge naturally. In this openness, your sensitivity to their energy grows, and you can feel the difference between routine interaction and genuine, spontaneous contact. This is why you sometimes sense that someone is about to reach out before they do. Your intuition has picked up on the subtle ways they've been gravitating toward you. Practicing stillness isn't about waiting in silence for them to show interest. It's about staying connected to yourself so you can interpret their actions accurately. The more grounded you are, the less likely you are to confuse wishful thinking with genuine signals. When you're calm, you become a better observer of small but meaningful gestures, such as a shift in their expression, a softer tone in their voice, or the way they focus on you even when surrounded by others. These are the moments when you can clearly feel their thoughts moving in your direction, and because you've trained your mind to be still, you recognize them without hesitation. Even when someone tries to hide their interest, their subconscious often reveals it through patterns they may not be aware of. The mind and body are constantly sending out signals, and when a person is thinking about you, those signals can show up in small, seemingly ordinary actions. They might check in with you without a specific reason, ask questions that revisit topics you've discussed before, or bring up memories you shared as if those moments are still fresh in their mind. These actions can slip past their conscious guard, but to someone paying attention, they stand out as signs of mental presence. The subconscious doesn't operate on the same level of restraint as deliberate speech. A person can carefully choose what they say, but their habits, reactions, and timing often give away more than they intend. For example, they may reach out at consistent times of day when they are most relaxed and thinking freely, or they might find themselves liking your posts, responding to your stories, or engaging with your content online without realizing how often they're doing it. These are not necessarily planned moves, they're reflexive behaviors driven by the fact that you occupy space in their thoughts. You might also notice it in how they recall details about your life. When someone remembers small specifics you've shared, such as your favorite drink, a recent event you attended, or a personal goal goal you mentioned, it's because those details have stayed in their mind long after the conversation ended. This is the subconscious at work, storing and resurfacing pieces of information that hold emotional value. Even if they don't express it outright, these recalls are evidence that you've been part of their inner world. Another subtle giveaway is how they adjust their behavior around you. They might unconsciously mirror your movements, match your speaking pace, or adopt certain words and phrases you use. This mirroring is a subconscious form of rapport building, and it often happens when someone feels connected or invested. They might also show up in unexpected ways, such as being more present in group settings when you're there, offering help without you asking, or making small sacrifices to ensure they can spend time with you. The key to recognizing these subconscious patterns is consistency. A single action might mean nothing on its own, but repeated behavior that aligns with moments when you haven't been in direct contact suggests a deeper connection. When these patterns emerge, they paint a picture of someone whose thoughts return to you naturally and repeatedly, even when they're trying to keep their feelings contained. By observing these behaviors without judgment or overanalysis, you can learn to distinguish between random gestures and genuine indicators of interest, giving you a clearer sense of when someone is thinking about you without them ever having to say it outright. When you are confident in yourself, you don't need constant reassurance from another person to feel valued, and this shift in mindset makes it much easier to recognize genuine signs that they're thinking about you. Confidence creates a sense of calm awareness. You're no longer chasing validation or reading into every small gesture in search of proof. Instead, you're able to notice authentic moments of connection as they naturally appear. This inner stability keeps you from overreacting to neutral behaviors, which means that when someone does act in a way that reveals they've been thinking about you, the signal is much clearer. Confidence also changes how others respond to you. People are drawn to those who carry themselves with self-assurance because it signals emotional security and independence. When you're grounded in your own worth, you don't give off the energy of desperation, which can sometimes push people away. Instead, your presence feels inviting without being demanding. This often encourages others to take more initiative, to reach out when you're not expecting it, and to make an effort to be part of your life. When they do, you can recognize these actions as genuine rather than as a response to pressure. Being secure in yourself also sharpens your perception. Without the noise of self-doubt clouding your thinking, you become more attuned to small but meaningful cues. You might notice the way their tone softens when they speak to you, the care they take in remembering something important to you, or the subtle way they position themselves to be near you in a group setting. Confidence allows you to process these moments without second-guessing whether they're real, because you trust your own ability to read a situation. Another benefit of confidence is that it reduces the temptation to force interactions or demand clarity too soon. You can let things unfold naturally, which makes it easier to see when their actions are coming from genuine thought rather than from obligation. This patience gives you a clearer picture of their true feelings and allows their interest to reveal itself without interference. When they initiate contact, follow up on something you've said, or check in unexpectedly, you can take these as honest indicators that you've been on their mind. Confidence also influences the energy you bring to every interaction. When you engage with someone from a place of self-worth, you create a dynamic where mutual respect and attraction can grow. The other person senses that you're in their life by choice, not because you need their attention to feel whole. This makes the times they express interest or connection stand out even more, because you're not constantly seeking them. You're simply living your life, aware enough to notice the subtle, intentional gestures that show you've been occupying their thoughts, and secure enough to appreciate them without clinging to them. In the end, sensing when someone is thinking about you is less about chasing signs and more about creating the right mindset and awareness to recognize them. It comes from being emotionally attuned, noticing the indirect ways people show interest interest, giving space through healthy detachment, sharpening your intuition through stillness, understanding the subconscious patterns that reveal hidden feelings, and maintaining the confidence to trust what you observe. When you combine these elements, you stop searching desperately for proof and start naturally feeling the quiet, undeniable moments when their attention and thoughts turn toward you.